Well, glory be and mercy me. We've done it yet again. Here we are on the daily walk around the graveyard. Hope you guys are doing really well. These are trying times for Canadians. These are trying times for people here in North America as the Freedom Convoy continues to occupy Ottawa. There have been shots fired across the bow here, there, and everywhere, but that's not what this video is all about today. We are talking about why the left is so ineffectual in the face of the Freedom Convoy. Very early on in my YouTube career, I made the decision that I was never going to actively critique, if you want to call it critique, I call it bashing, really, other leftists on YouTube. That there's a great deal of this sort of thing that happens, right? Like, so-and-so schools such and such, right? These sorts of clickbait style videos, these kinds of ways to drive interaction within the algorithm and so on and so forth. And I've decided very early that I was never really going to critique other leftists as they attempt to find their platform, find their feet, find out what they believe in, and communicate with one another and try to educate one another, because I often find that critique is born from ignorance more than anything. It ends up not being critique, it ends up being backseat quarterbacking, or it ends up being a way to deny your own or your own shortcomings. It's a way to deny your inability to understand or unwillingness to understand what's being said to you. And so better to listen to what's being said and contemplate on it and make your own decision. No need to clap back, right? Well, I'm going to break that rule on this one particular subject because I feel like the left is due for a bit of critique, a bit of meaningful critique within the context of this trucker convoy. The online left, as it's so called, is an incredibly weak and masturbatorial force. It doesn't actually manifest into anything meaningful. It ends up being a dead end for well-meaning people who go online seeking to express something and have their voice heard. There are platforms, social media platforms, I'm on one of them, hello YouTube, how are you, that galvanize that energy and funnel it, instead of into areas that are useful and productive, it funnels them into algorithms so that other people can consume them. Where is the left not funneling its energy? Into the streets. You'll note that the Freedom Convoy, the Occupy movement, these are cultural touchstones that have merit and are important. Why? Because they are happening in the streets. They are direct confrontations with people in ways that matter. When I attempt to organize protest, when I attempt to join protest, it is because I understand that this is the way the bar moves. The bar does not move in online discourse. That certainly there is a space for education, for communication, for attempting to get leftist values across. For God's sakes, I'm using this platform. It would be hypocritical of me to say otherwise. But I have a difficult time engaging with leftist content and listening to leftists speak, or people who claim that they are left-leaning or any of this, because at the end of the day, most of these online leftists are more concerned with their business than they are concerned with the movement, and this is evidenced by their unwillingness to galvanize their followers into the streets. Some of these YouTubers have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Some of these YouTubers are actually quite large and could become quite influential in actual politics and on the streets. They decide not to. That is because, quite frankly, they're comfortable. This leads to a phenomenon, the quote-unquote debate bro phenomenon that exists in leftists' circles, where two people essentially chirp at one another. Nothing really gets resolved because they're not actually genuinely interested in collaboration. They're not genuinely interested in cooperation. They're not really interested in moving forward a movement. They're really just interested in finding more consumers of their content. And because their goal is not to get those consumers of the content to actually confront power in a meaningful way, you know, by going to the halls of power and surrounding them the way that the Freedom Convoy people have done in order to throw their clout around a little bit, in order to attempt to shift the bar. Because that is not the basis of the communication. It is a form of intellectual masturbation by all parties involved. The online leftist discourse is caught in this somewhat absurdist belief that if all they do is say the right words to one another, this will unlock a box, and somehow truth and justice will descend from the heavens, and everything will be happy and wonderful because we made the correct argument and we maintained our moral purity. We showed everyone how right we are on subjects. Well, I hate to break it to you, the capitalist death cult does not care if you are right. The capitalist death cult does not care if you say the right words, wave the magic wand. The capitalist death cult does not care how many subscribers you have if all you are going to do is complain. You think that there hasn't been a long history of complaining? You think there isn't a long, virulent, strong history of people going to pubs, grumbling into their cups to one another and complaining? No ruler in the history of mankind has ever been afraid of people complaining. What the rulers are afraid of are people outside of their job, outside of the halls of power, causing them problems. And if you take a look at people like Vaush, people like Hasan, they're essentially inert dead ends that even if they were completely correct about everything that they were saying, even if 100% of the time they were the bearers of total truth, it would be completely and totally irrelevant, because the death cult does not care how right you are in your bedroom as you talk into a webcam. This makes leftism in North America essentially inert. That there really isn't much of a leftist movement that exists in North America because the leftists are more concerned about their business model than they are about the movement. And leftists understand and know, these days especially, very well, that if they begin engaging in meaningful actions to take on the death cult, they will face censorship, they will face suppression in the algorithm, they will face any number of difficulties that will chew in to their bottom line, that will chew in to their profit margin, that will chew in to their profit motive, and they're very aware of it, and so they don't do it. Choosing instead to just do yet another clickbait video, yet another thing where so-and-so crushes so-and-so, yet another thing where we're all supposed to get up in arms because, oh, can you believe that this guy said this about this guy? And in the end, it's just us entertaining ourselves like a child playing with a lighter. Everybody knows that fire is dangerous. Everybody knows that it could be used for something useful, But if all you do is sit in the corner and flick it and laugh at the flame that gets set up, no one's going to take that lighter from you. It's only when you actually go and use it and do something with it that people really care about that in the first place. The Freedom Convoy, the Truckers Convoy, the Flu Trucks Clan, if you prefer, is 1,000 times more impactful, 1,000 times more meaningful, 1,000 times more influential, 1,000 times more effective than the entirety of leftist discourse online, because leftists don't get in the streets. And in my view, that means you're not a leftist at all. You're just a guy that likes to masturbate in front of people. Just because you're doing it with your brain doesn't mean it isn't obvious. Thus ends the leftist critique. Well, that's the end of this video, guys. If you've made it here, like, share, subscribe, hit all the bells, hit all the whistles. I've got a Patreon down below. We got to be supporting actual leftists who actually organize protests, who actually get into the streets to actually do the work that's actually important. Too much money goes towards these guys that are essentially just sitting there masturbating in front of you. We have to fund leftists. We are suppressed. We don't have a seat at the table. And we are obviously getting pushed aside. Always remember, guys, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hope that you'd never realize it. Because if you do, you might understand that you're not a commodity after all. Rebel, revolt, repent. Good luck. We're gonna need it.